So there's dramatic differences in terms of how the New York case was handled versus how the case against Hunter Biden was handled. If you'd like to spend another 3 or 4 hours, we can go outside and I can give you additional evidence to that effect.
Now, I live in Washington, D.C., and I report on D.C. politics. That means reporting on Capitol Hill a lot of the time, House of Representatives and the Senate. And I'm a bit of a nerd about this stuff. I think the House of Representatives is fascinating and frustrating at the same time. And one of my favorite committees is one that nobody ever talks about, that gets hardly any coverage at all. It's the House Rules Committee. But if you ask anyone who knows anything about what goes down in Washington, D.C. on Capitol Hill and the House of Representatives, they will tell you that the most powerful and most important committee is the Rules Committee. This is where they lay out the rules for any piece of legislation or any sort of special hearing or any major motion on the floor. First, you lay out the rules for the debate and for the vote, and then you go to the business of the debate and the vote. It's in the Rules Committee where things are decided, sometimes before it ever even makes it to the floor. You can see where things are headed based on how the Rules Committee goes. Also, 2 other reasons why I love the Rules Committee. It's where members of Congress are probably their most candid as they start ripping each other's throats out because they really do hate each other. And number 2, it's one of the smallest rooms that they have hearings in. So everybody's in tight, cramped quarters. And it doesn't feel as made for television. It feels more real. It feels more raw. And it certainly felt that way 2 days ago in the Rules Committee as they were discussing the rules for the debate and vote over the what we saw yesterday, holding Attorney General Merrick Garland in contempt of Congress. Jerry Nadler asked a very, very good question that he immediately regretted asking. And it had to do with, hey, I keep hearing people say that this prosecution of Donald Trump in Manhattan was unfair and improper. I mean, what was unfair about it? And then watch what happened next.
The gentlelady from Wyoming a moment ago said that there were clear differences between the way the Hunter Biden trial was conducted and the legitimacy of that trial and the illegitimacy of the Donald Trump trial in New York. Maybe she'd enlighten us as to the difference.
I'm happy to have that debate
Please.
with you any day of the week,
Please.
but I just don't think that that's relevant to what we're
Well, you
discussing.
brought it up. So
I mean,
why
we
don't
can,
you
we
explain
can
it?
start with.
You said it was
the judge.
absurd.
Now, this is Harriet Hageman, by the way. You know her because she beat Liz Cheney by about 30 points in her primary after the January 6th Select Committee back in 2022. She's awesome. She's a freshman, by the way, and she's absolutely kicking booty as the representative for Wyoming. And I want you to recognize here, because Nadler says, oh, you keep saying that it was big differences and it was unfair what happened to Donald Trump. I'd love for you to. And she's actually giving him an out. She's actually saying, and I know from your point of view, it sounds like she's weaseling out of it, right? Oh, I'd love to answer your question, but I don't think it's relevant here, right? Which is oftentimes a dodge. But in fact, in this case, I think it was kind of a bait and switch. I think it was to suck Jerry Nadler into this. I'd love to tell you what was wrong with the trial against Donald Trump up in Manhattan, but I don't think it's relevant here. And then Jerry Nadler insists. And watch what Harriet Hageman does.
Wait, hold on, Miss Hag.
All
Miss
right,
Hageman.
we can start with the judge that was handpicked rather than randomly chosen, which is typical in most of your court cases. You can talk about the fact that you talked about unanimity of verdict. We don't even know what the verdict was at this point in terms of what he was allegedly convicted of unanimously. We can talk about the fact that almost every single ruling that was made by Judge Merchan in New York was against the defense, despite the fact that when you're dealing with a criminal case, there's either typically much more of a balance, or in fact to ensure that the prosecution actually meets its burden of proving beyond a reasonable doubt, most of the rulings would be in favor of the criminal defendant, not in favor of the prosecution. It's in the fact that the expert witness, who is the federal election, former head of the Federal Election Commission, was excluded from testifying as an expert witness in the case in New York, despite the fact that he has been qualified as an expert witness to testify on these matters throughout the entire United States. It is the fact that there were other witnesses that were excluded. There was a substantial evidence, prejudicial evidence that was admitted during the course of the trial. And then when you look at what happened with Hunter Biden, the prosecution was very precise, very specific about the nature of the statute that was at issue and how he violated it. And then they brought in the evidence from the family members, the ex-wife, the girlfriend, the Beau's widow, the young girlfriend, all of the testimony, him reading the book, all of the testimony. The evidence was overwhelming that Hunter Biden had violated the specific statute at issue. So there's dramatic differences in terms of how the New York case was handled versus how the case against Hunter Biden was handled. If you'd like to spend another 3 or 4 hours, we can go outside and I can give you additional evidence to that effect.
All right,
Can I just say, you got to you see that man sitting next, see the smile on Jim Comer's face. James Comer, the chairman of the Oversight Committee, who sat there during that whole thing. It took 2 minutes. And look at James Comer's smile. He's like, I love this woman. Oh, if I weren't a happily married man. There was something so epic about that. And she's like, I'm just getting started. You want more? I got more. Let's go outside. Let's take it outside. Don't ask questions, Jerry Nadler, if you're unprepared to actually get the answer. Now, that's just one highlight of this remarkable Rules Committee 2 days ago. Now, spoiler alert, they ended up voting to hold Merrick Garland in contempt. And I want to take you to another part of the debate in the Rules Committee, because, again, everyone's there in tight, close quarters, and they're going at it about whether they should move forward with this hold Merrick Garland in contempt. And you're going to hear the crux of it here. The reason that Merrick Garland was held in contempt of Congress is because Congress subpoenaed a piece of evidence from the Justice Department, and Merrick Garland has withheld it under dubious executive privilege reasons. And let me just be clear on what this is. This is the audio of Joe Biden's interrogation at the hands of the special counsel, Robert Hur, over Joe Biden's criminal mishandling of classified documents. You will remember that Mr. Hur found that he had, in fact, mishandled classified documents and violated the law, but because of his mental incapacity, he would not be able to stand trial and a jury would not be able to convict him, so they decided not to bring charges. Now, the Justice Department has produced a transcript of that interview, of that interrogation. So by presenting the transcript, they've already waived their executive privilege because whatever occurred in that interview is supposed to be on that transcript. So now Congress says, okay, well, we want the audio so we can match it up against the transcript. And now Merrick Garland's saying, no, you can't have that because of executive privilege. It's an outrageous false use of executive privilege. And that's why he's being held in contempt. So now watch how the debate went forward.
The actual audio of the interview available. Let the American people be the deciders here.
Because
why hide that from them?
Because
People are sensitive because they were told that, say, a certain laptop was Russian disinformation, and 51 members of the intelligence community signed a letter to that effect, and then it turns out, well, maybe it was not.
Because the chairman...
Yeah, and I'll let you finish, but that's such an important point that you don't hear made enough. Because the Democrats, Jerry Nadler, Joe Biden, Merrick Garland, the corrupt powers that be, their argument here is, we gave you the transcript. Trust us. And the answer is, yeah, last time you told us to trust you, you said the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation. So forgive me for not being gullible again. That honestly should be the beginning, middle, and end of this debate. But it went on. But that's a critically important point made there.
Of the Judiciary Committee has already been caught altering...
May I respond?
No,
Yeah.
not until I finish. Has been caught altering verbal, electronic transcripts in the case of Nina Jankowicz. And we have every reason to, or let me retract that.
Yeah.
We have no reason to believe that he wouldn't do so again.
If I may respond.
Please, I wish you would.
That is absolutely untrue. Neither Jim Jordan nor anybody on the Judiciary Committee made any changes to Nina Jankowicz's interview transcript. That's absolutely a false statement. There's one other point that I think needs to be clarified, which is that Special Counsel Robert Hur stated on page 1 of his report, our investigation uncovered evidence that President Biden willfully retained and disclosed classified materials after his vice presidency when he was a vice president. The reason that he recommended against prosecuting President Biden was not a gratuitous statement. It was the reason as to why he refused to recommend prosecution. And it was that because Joe Biden is a, quote, sympathetic, well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory, Mr. Hur was concerned that a jury would not be willing to convict. Anyone who wants to see what Mr. Hur actually found and his explanation of what he did, you can go and you can watch the hearing before the Judiciary Committee. But one thing is very clear, and I will go back to it again. The folks on the other side of the aisle keep wanting to say the transcript and the audio are identical. There is no reason why, if you have the transcript, you're entitled to the audio. As a long practicing attorney, they are not the same thing. The audio is the best evidence of what he said, how he said it, the time that it took for him to say it, and in what ways they may have altered that transcript. The moment that they released the transcript and said, this is the interview, they waived their ability to claim any kind of a privilege. And they don't have a legally valid privilege in addition to that. And it's for that reason that we believe that Merrick Garland needs to be held in contempt of Congress.
Holy moly, she is good. I mean, really good. The people of Wyoming talk about an upgrade from Liz Cheney. And let's just reiterate something that was just said, because the whole justification for not bringing criminal charges against Joe Biden or recommending criminal charges against Joe Biden from the special counsel over his criminal mishandling of classified documents, which, as you heard right there on page 1 of Robert Hur's report, he confirmed that Joe Biden was guilty of criminal mishandling of classified documents. The only rationale for not bringing charges or recommending to bring charges is because of his performance in this deposition, because of the way he came across, his inability to answer questions, his inability to remember basic facts like the year his son died. It compelled the U.S. attorney acting as a special prosecutor in this case to recommend that charges not be brought. So it's not just what he said, it is how he said it, the manner in which he said it. That is an incredibly compelling piece of foundational evidence to back up what the special counsel recommended here. And we, the people, you better damn well believe that we have every right to hear it. And the second they allowed that transcript out, there is literally what executive privilege doesn't extend to the actual content of what you're saying. Executive privilege is only there to protect people from hearing you say it. We can read you saying it, but we can't hear you saying it. I'd love for a judge to rule on that executive privilege claim. It's complete and utter nonsense. That's right, I said utter nonsense. I was going to say total. Then I said utter. It came out utter. Nobody's nerfed. All right, we continue here with the rebuttal from Mr. Nadler.
I firmly believe
I will agree with her. I will agree.
Gentleman will suspend. I firmly believe that the American people are entitled to hear this, and I'm grateful that you brought this today. I'll give you a chance to respond, Mr. Nadler, but then we need to move on to
I will
Mr.
agree with Ms.
McGovern.
Hageman that there is no evidence that the transcript was altered whatsoever. Transcript wasn't altered. But in Ms. Hageman, I'm sorry, Ms. Jankowicz's case, the transcript wasn't altered, the video was altered. And that's what we're concerned about.
We're not arguing the Jankowicz case. We're arguing.
No, but if the Judiciary
The
Committee
American people
was
deserve the
dishonest
ability
enough-
to see that and make this
if
decision on
this-
their own. They are sick and tired of being lied to
if the,
by
di-
agencies.
if the
Yeah, they're sick and tired of being lied to, and they're sick and tired of Democrats like Jerry Nadler trying to protect us. The American people shouldn't be able to see this because somebody might, put together a mashup reel of all of Joe Biden's utter failures, and you might reach the conclusion that his brain is actually made of mashed potatoes. And we can't have that. Well, spoiler alert, yesterday after that debate in the Rules Committee, which again, are you with me? Do you not love the Rules Committee? They ended up holding Merrick Garland in contempt. However, what that means is they then take that recommendation for criminal charges and they give it to the Justice Department. Now, in the last Congress with the Democrat majority, they held Stephen Bannon in contempt and Peter Navarro in contempt, and the Justice Department then pressed criminal charges. They convicted them, and now they're sentencing them to jail. In this case, Merrick Garland now, who oversees the Justice Department, he has decided that he will not hold himself in contempt. And he won't step aside and let somebody else make that judgment. He will let an independent third party make that judgment. In fact, he's relying on a memo that was drafted by the Justice Department to advise him on this. So let's just be clear. Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, has been held in contempt of Congress. And in evaluating whether Merrick Garland should be brought up on criminal charges for that contempt, Merrick Garland, the person who would make that decision about his own contempt of Congress, consulted his own employees and had his own employees draft a memo advising him on whether he should or should not hold himself in contempt. Okay? Did you follow that? And Merrick Garland also assures you that there is no politicization of the Justice Department, that everyone is treated fairly under the law, and that there's absolutely no bias in any of the decisions that they make. Just trust him. Trust him. When has he ever led you down the wrong path?